69% of Americans say they oppose a plan to shut down the government and stop paying the nation's bills in order to defund a new health care law. Just 19% support the idea. President Obama knows it, and he's ready to fight for it.
Well, let me say as clearly as I can, it is not going to happen. We have come too far. We've overcome far darker threats than those. We will not negotiate over whether or not America should keep its word and meet its obligations. We're not going to allow anyone to inflict economic pain on millions of our own people just to make an ideological point, and those folks are going to get some health care in this country. We've been waiting 50 years for it.
Joining me now is Congressman Jim McDermott, Democrat from Washington, and Joan Walsh. Thank you both for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ron.
Good to be here.
Congressman, let me go to you first. The House has passed a bill defunding Obamacare. What will the Senate do now?
Throw it in the wastebasket. They're not going to respond to that kind of thing. They are going to pass a budget resolution to continue the funding of the government, send it back to us without that, and it is going to be voted on in the House. The House will have to make their decision sometime later this week as to whether they really want to shut the government down or not. I'm afraid they're going to do it.
Now, Joan, that is my fear. You're willing to, for the first time in the history of this country, default the country to stop people, 20 million Americans, from getting health care. I mean, are we really at that point? They will default the country just to stop it.
I believe we are at that point. I don't know if they'll be able to get away with it, Reverend Al, but we're at that point. Obstruction is not an accident or a byproduct. Obstruction is the point. Repealing is the point.
You know, Congressman, the real threat is that that group may be able to be enough to shut the government down if we can't pressure them or convince them whatever way becomes available in the Congress to really stop this that would inflict so much pain on so many Americans.
Reverend, I think what we've got here is a situation where they are going to run the string out. They've already started it by trying to reduce food stamps. $20 billion in cuts on food stamps wasn't enough. They went to $40 billion.
Right.
Now they're going to try and take away the health care for people who are already beginning to get it from the president's plan, and they are going to push it to the point where they are going to have the public come back 3 or 4 days later and say, are you people crazy? You go back there and get this country back on its feet. They simply believe that they can convince the people if they keep pushing hard enough. And the people are not dumb. The people see through this, as Judd Gregg has already said. The people have already rejected this bunch.
None of us, even those of us that want to see their political demise, since they're so narrow-minded, want to see that at the expense of the millions of American people.
To think the American people are stupid enough that they're going to think, oh, yeah, it is Barack Obama's fault that he won't give up funding Obamacare. That's why the government is shutting down. The public sees through that. It's already clear who they're going to blame.
No, I think, Congressman, that's the most insulting to me, to the intellect of the American public, for them to really hold this country hostage, in effect. To say you either do what I want, despite the fact that I lost in the House, lost in the Senate on the bill, lost at the Supreme Court, and lost the general election. I'm still going to hold this. And, oh, by the way, it's not me, it's him doing it. I mean, like we're stupid on top of everything else.
You know, they voted on this 42 times in the last 3 years. And you would think somewhere in there they would have got a glimmer of understanding. But I really do believe, Rev, that they can't read polls. The polls say the president has been supported, both in the election and one done yesterday by one of the big newspapers. There is no question that the people are behind the president of the United States, and yet they keep running their head into the wall. It really is a crazy situation.
Congressman Jim McDermott and Joan Walsh, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me.